All right, Coach. So I remember talking to Coach Dez when he hired you, and he said they were changing things up a little bit, maybe where you're going to be more the secondary coach, not necessarily the cornerbacks coach or the safeties coach. Have you done that like pretty much everywhere you've been, or how's that dynamic different?
Yeah, not every place I've been, but this won't be the first time. For the most part, you'll wind up splitting them up in sections. But what happens with that is when the coordinator's not available, the way we're doing it now is that I'll actually run the meetings and be responsible for all of them. So basically, I'm responsible for all of them. But at the same time, when we need individualized things that we need to work on, we'll split them up to where Coach Salgado or Coach Sawyer is working with them, and then I'll work with the corners and the nickels. So we'll mix and match as we go. So, but for the most part, I'm responsible for them. But we still, because each one has their individualized techniques that they need to work on, we'll have to separate at times.
Coach Salgado mentioned that y'all had crossed paths, so you were already here when you heard he was the job. Like, I mean, what kind of familiarity would you know about him?
We're pretty familiar because where we crossed paths is doing recruiting. Back in the day, we both started we're recruiting the DMV area. So we were running to each other all the time, and we became friends over the years and kind of kept up with each other. So we've never actually worked together, but we're really familiar with each other through the recruiting trail and recruiting that area. And then, we just followed each other's career, over the years. So it was pretty cool to see. It just means I'm getting old and I kind of know a little bit of everybody.
How aggressive do you guys do like the secondary and the corners to be? You want to keep everything in front of you, or do you, take some risks and live with the results because sometimes I'm
it just depends on the call. We're going to try to be as aggressive and challenge routes as much as we can, but then there'll be times where we need to stay on top of routes. But ideally, you want to try to keep, the vertical separation and stay on top of routes as much as you possibly can. But then there's going to be times in situations where we're going to need to be aggressive. As far as us being every down, I wouldn't say we're probably going to be every down where we're challenging, 2 and 3 yard routes, but for the most part, we're going to try to keep the ball in front of us, but at the same time, find that happy medium where we're aggressive with it, but not getting the ball thrown over our head.
The one thing we kept hearing last year is communication issues when it was communication. So is that something you can see on film, or how do you go about addressing what the issues are and fix it?
I'm not sure about everything that transpired yesterday, but if there's a communication issue, something we need to emphasize every day in practice, just talking. But where it starts is trying to make sure the package is, for lack of a better word, simple enough to where they are communicating and they're sure about what they're doing. And so they will communicate, but it's something us as coaches that we have to emphasize and demand on a regular basis. But also as coaches, we've got to make sure that the package, that it's not what we know, it's what they know. And then when you put in a package that that they can learn and they can play fast, because at the end of the day, you want them to know exactly what's going on. They want to play fast, they want to play physical, and they want to put themselves in a position to make plays. But as far as the communication, I think a lot of it is us demanding them, and the kids getting in their playbooks to where they know exactly what's going on. Because a lot of times communication issues come when they're not sure of what they're doing. So we're going to make sure that they're sure of what they're doing. They know exactly, pre-snap, they're going to know the call, they're going to know the alignment, they're going to know where their eyes are. They're going to know, what they're keying, and then they're going to know their responsibility. When you do that with every snap, you got a chance for it to be successful, because the more they can identify, pre-snap and communicate is going to give them the biggest chance of success when that ball is snapped.
So far in these practices, what has kind of impressed you, kind of like with what you've seen out there on the practice field?
Probably the biggest thing that I've been impressed with is just the camaraderie of the guys. I think they're really close, and they play for each other, and just the effort, and because those are things that you worry about. Obviously, you worry about scheme and things like that, but a lot of things that makes up for that is the close-knitness of the team and how hard they play, and are they playing for each other. And I think these guys, that's one of the things that has impressed me, that they're a tight-knit group and they play for each other. And then other than that, I've been impressed with the athleticism, and it's just going to be our job to put those guys in the right spot to be able to make plays.
You've been a coordinator, and other guys that are on the defensive staff have you already noticed that y'all try to collaborate and figure things out? Is that a benefit, or?
Yeah, it's definitely a benefit, because the more ideas you have in the room, it's going to give you a better chance to put the best package together. And that's been awesome to be in the room with so many guys that have so much football knowledge, and not only having the knowledge, but they also have the right attitude, and there's no egos. Everybody's put their egos aside, and we're just trying to come up with the best ideas and the best package to put these kids in the best situations to be one of the best defenses in the conference.
I'm sure you've watched film from last year since you've gotten here. Kind of what stuck out as far as the players that you're now coaching that you've seen, that you liked, and where can you get better?
The guys that played last year, the guys that we've seen the most on film at the corner spot, we've seen Kenyon Martin, who I think he has a lot of ability. He's put himself in position to make some plays. There's still some things we need to clean up. He's still, a long way from maximizing all the things he can do, but he stood out at the safety spot. I would say Jalen Clark and Skip are two guys who stood out, who played a lot of plays. They're big, athletic kids that, again, we just got to make sure we're putting them in the right situations, and that they know the package and they can put themselves in position to win. Another one that probably stood out that flashed and made plays would be Cortland Flowers. I think he did a lot of good things. We just got to find the right spots for him, because he's a guy that probably can play multiple positions. So we got to make sure we get him in the right spot to where he can help us. Shad's doing a great job, and then I think Agu has some ability too, but he's probably the rawest of all of them. But he's very coachable, and that's the thing that's been fun about all those guys back there. That really have a great attitude, a coach me coach attitude. They listen, and then they try to do things the way you want them to get it done. And that's what's encouraging about our potential as a defense. And again, it's going to be our job to put the package together and make sure they can learn it, and then they can play fast and they can play physical.
How much of a chore is it to come to a new conference? Like, do you have to spend a lot of time learning these new offenses and what they do, or is that not as critical as it might seem from this side of the fence?
Yes, it is. So on my free times, Coach Salgado's free time, Coach Stoker is a little bit more familiar with how the conference rolls. And then the guys who've been here in the past, Coach G, who's been here in the past, we kind of lean on those guys, and Coach Thomas, the D-line coach, so they have an idea. So I'm constantly asking them questions about who does this, who has this particular offense, who has this particular types of maybe motions, or who has these particular skill sets. So me and Coach Salgado, we've got to, we're a little bit behind as far as that concern, but you do that with putting in the time, just putting in the work and watching films and familiarizing yourself as much as you can with their offenses. And then it becomes an even more difficult task if they have a new coach. So that's when you just gotta grind and do your research and find out as much as you possibly can, so that you have an idea of what they might be attacking you with.